If you've paid any attention to Randy Pitchford's new cult leader fit and hairline, you'd know that the general consensus among Borderlands fans is that Borderlands 3's gameplay is the best the series has put out up to this point. But its story reads like a mix between the writing of fanfiction and the comedy style of Joe Rogan's latest stool impregnation fantasy that he calls a Netflix special. And that is mostly true. Now, if I agree with the general sentiment out there, why am I making this video? Most of the discussions I see on Borderlands 3 talk about the gameplay being great and the story and characters being awful, but don't talk about the bigger picture surrounding it. What happens when a series starts to lose sight of where it started, and its identity crisis is so bad it starts to affect the gameplay experience? So join me as we deep dive into Borderlands 3, and if the writing was really as bad as everyone says it is. A month after the release of the pre-sequel, Telltale Games released a story-oriented spin-off named Tales from the Borderlands, starring Troy Baker as the Hyperion employee Reese as you follow him in his misadventures on Pandora. It's a legitimately hilarious and well-written adventure that starkly contrasts how rushed the writing was in the pre-sequel. Definitely worth a play if you're into that sort of thing. Between this and 2019, not much happened besides Gearbox deciding to add Battleborn to their list of games that make humanity's case for existing much weaker, to join Aliens, Colonial Marines, and Duke Nukem Forever. In March 2019, the game was announced, and fans were ready for the next true Borderlands installment. To fill in the gap between Tales from the Borderlands and Borderlands 3, a new DLC, Commander Lilith and the Fight for Sanctuary, was released in June of 2019. This DLC follows Lilith as she struggles to fill in the hole left in the Crimson Raiders after Roland's death, with a villain that's written relatively well, and manages to challenge Lilith to become the leader the Crimson Raiders need. To Gearbox's credit, they also announced that Borderlands 3 would be completed without mandatory overtime, or what the industry calls crunch. While this is admirable, in theory, it says nothing about eliminating the social pressure to work these hours, which would create a crunch culture in the workplace. Up to the launch, Gearbox managed to stay out of trouble and rode the wave of hype to the September release. Nah, I'm just kidding. It was actually soon announced that two voice actors, Troy Baker, the voice of Reese, and David Eddings, the voice of Claptrap, would not return for their roles in Borderlands 3. In response to somebody inquiring about Troy Baker not returning, Randy Pitchford made a detailed and well thought out public statement. Nah, I'm just kidding again. He hopped on Twitter and said Baker turned the role down. When Troy Baker caught wind of Pitchford's comment, he responded that Pitchford should fact check before he tweets out to the internet, which is just kind of good advice in general. It was soon revealed that Troy Baker wouldn't be making a return because Gearbox refused to sign a contract with SAG-AFTRA, the union representing Baker. Gearbox responded by claiming Texas law prevented them from making hiring decisions based on union or non-union status, implying that somehow this law prevented them from being able to hire him, which doesn't make any sense. SAG-AFTRA responded by claiming that they did not require workers to be unionized for the project, just that everyone working on it would be guaranteed the same basic standards. When David Eddings announced that he would not be returning due to insisting he be paid for his performance, Randy Pitchford said to a random Twitter user once again that Eddings was given a quote-unquote relatively generous offer, which isn't really a way you word something to spark a lot of confidence in your position. He later followed up to say Eddings was offered a 2x scale for his work, and was just an ex-employee disgruntled about being fired. Eddings claimed that this offer was never made to him. At this point, the floodgates opened, as Eddings alleged that after hearing an offer was being made to buy Gearbox and discussing it with Pitchford, he was physically assaulted and fired a few days later after refusing to give up the source who told him this, evidenced by the text messages between the two. While this is a he said situation, one person is a known liar and barely legal squirt porn enjoyer. Don't worry, we'll get to that. And the other gave up his job to protect a source from retaliation. Eventually, the game was released, and people forgot, because they always do. Listen, I took out my wallet too. I'm not saying I'm above it either. Borderlands 3 release, and did they add some new mechanics? The new movement felt fresh, with the ability to slide and kick barrels at enemies. The action skills of the Vault Hunters could now be customized to fit your playstyle, and manufacturers now have their own alternate firing mode, making each feel more distinct and unique from the other. Radiation damage was added to the game, and Cryo came back. Radiation is effective against shields, and Cryo is good against armor. Still, both less so than Shock and Corrosive, respectively. But they do normal damage against regular health bars. This is the best Borderlands has ever felt to play, especially with the crispness of the firing sounds, and the sizzle, crack, and pop when you light people on fire is just beautiful. And the quality of life is so good. No longer do you have to loot and sell item rarities that take up inventory space. You can just turn them into money on pickup. You can change quest objectives with the click of a button, refill health or ammo with one key press, and when you play multiplayer, you can create instance loot and enemies scaled to the level of each player so you can play along with a friend even if they're ahead of you in levels. This is an excellent addition because, yeah, one of the most significant barriers between you and playing with friends before was needing a whole new playthrough or one person grinding to the point where the other player was at before you could ever play with each other. I'm not going to do a deep dive into the intro, but it fixed a lot of the complaints I had with the pre-sequel, and clearly showed what each character was about. Flak uses beasts to help him out, Mose is the tanky soldier who rides in a mech, Amara is the siren with a more aggressive playstyle than previous sirens, and Zane is the cocky trickster assassin. The intro is good at establishing the playstyle and personality of each character you play as. The game starts with Lilith giving you a mission to clear out the Children of the Vault camp, which is the main threat you face. You're told they managed to bring all of the bandits on Pandora under one banner. You clear out the hideout and hear the Sun Smashers are being targeted, and you have to help them. You meet Vaughn, leader of the Sun Smashers and corporate accountant turned bandit from Tales from the Borderlands, and are tasked with taking down the Holy Broadcast Center where the Children of the Vault spread their propaganda. Yeah, gameplay-wise, I remember this being I remember having so much fun with it, and having more fun than any other Borderlands game, because I feel like the gameplay gets better every single Borderlands. Although with the replayability, I feel like Borderlands 2 did that best, because they had True Vault Hunter, Ultimate Vault Hunter, Skibidi Toilet Vault Hunter, and they just had all these extra modes and all these extra. You fight Mouthpiece, and you can tell they put some work into the bosses in this game. You have to dodge the speaker blasts, hit him while he's open, all while loud electronic music plays in the background. The environmental hazards and flashing lights add such a fun dimension to this battle. But that's where my praise of this section ends, because right after you meet the Calypso twins. In this game, the writers set out to ask the question of what would happen if you had the most douchey streamers in existence with a psycho cult following. But they don't answer or expand on it. It's just a haha funny quirk of the shallow and one-dimensional villains, but we'll get to that later too. You get the vault key, bring it to Tanis, and fight off some bandits before you're tasked with going to Promethea to find the vault. While getting the ship ready to launch, Lilith is attacked by the Calypso twins, with Tyreen taking her powers, and leaving her alive for some reason. This is one of my many significant issues with this game's writing. Nobody actually acts like a real person. Listen, I know the reasonable move for a not in fridge temperature IQ human being when they have the leader of the most threatening faction against them, who took down the quadrillionaire head of Hyperion at their mercy, would be to kill them right then and there. But listen, man, that would mean we'd have to write creative ways for characters to escape from hairy situations. And that, oh boy, that sounds like a lot of work. It feels like the lesson the writers took from Handsome Jack as a villain was literally just create a smug character and have them taunt you throughout the game and miss every single part about what made Handsome Jack a great antagonist. Handsome Jack was a good villain because, yes, at the beginning of the game, he didn't take you super seriously, but he was also up in Helios running an intergalactic corporation, so it makes sense that he just throws some money at some bandits and hopes they kill you because he has better things to do than just deal with some mercenaries. Later, when you join up with the Crimson Raiders, he starts to throw more time and resources your way since you're now part of the leading organization being a thorn in his side. After you kill Wilhelm and get the power core to take down Sanctuary shields, it turns out that it didn't matter whether you lived or died in the cold, since Jack was always a step ahead with Angel at his side. Throughout the game, you see the gradual increase in the allocation of resources Hyperion uses against you, with elite soldiers calling out your abilities, showing that they've been briefed on what you're capable of. It never feels like Jack is holding back, but using what he believes to be reasonable tactics for each situation. A villain respecting your strength not only makes you feel good as a player, but also makes the antagonist feel more dangerous. It shows they have enough intelligence and awareness of their capabilities to evaluate situations and still believe that they'll come out ahead. The reason Troy and Tyreen suck as villains is that literally every single strategy from them that they employ is just to walk in and use their siren powers. Sorry, I know that was pretty complicated. Let me explain their tactics throughout the game again, in case you didn't catch their Mossad agent level strategies. They walk in and use their siren powers. Sometimes you might even get an ass pull. This isn't necessarily a bad thing in writing, and it's very common for villains to be much more powerful than the protagonist at the story's beginning. Otherwise, you wouldn't really have anything to work towards. The problem is that the writers are too lazy to A, figure out creative ways that the Crimson Raiders come up with to avoid facing the Calypso twins head on, and B, have villains do everything in their power to cripple their opponent and not act like total morons when they get the opportunity. As much of a smug douche Handsome Jack was, he would never, ever just leave a threat to him alive for literally no reason. It's not like the writers are incapable of writing creative solutions to problems. I thought that this section where you lift the airlock to put out a fire was really cute and creative and took advantage of the spaceship setting to solve a unique problem you were facing. Echo Classic, Birthday Dog. Oh my god, look at that guy, look how silly he is. Oh my god. Look at how silly that guy is, bro. You get up to the ship and run into some turbulence and are tasked with helping some people. This is the game's way of giving you a tour of the convoluted design of the spaceship. I don't know why they just couldn't have ladders and stairs in the same spot to go between floors instead of having stairs and ladders all around the place for you to get lost, even when you're 20 hours into the game, because the design of the hub is just that bad. This design is just so complicated and confusing for no reason. I feel like a rat in a maze being studied every time I try to accept a side quest. Why design it like this? Anyway, you arrive on Promethea and see Atlas, now run by Reese from Tales, in a battle for its existence against Malawan, who's now working with the Children of the Vault. You're tasked with killing Gigamind alongside Zero to get more information on the Vault, and have Reese agree to help you find it. You return to the ship, give the info to Lilith, and travel to Athenas to help Maya defend the monastery from Malawan. There was one line that irked me a bit from this section that underlies the philosophy with the writing.
Coast is clear. When we're not at war, the bells of peace ring all hours of the day and night. Kind of a nightmare, honestly.
So you have monks who are pacifists, don't seem to have any sort of governmental body to protect them and ensure that they have their peace and can follow their tenets. They have bells they ring all day to announce to the world that they're at peace instead of using the bells to alert to attacks. You can say that they'll know about an attack if the bell stops ringing, but the advantage of a bell is that you can tell the direction the sound is coming from and where the threat is. Also, if they ring the bell at night, wouldn't this be the easiest civilization to execute stealth missions against? How do these people survive? And don't tell me a single siren is enough to defend them, because why are you here? Instead of actually thinking about these questions and building out the faction of the Monks of Athenas, they throw world building out the window for a joke that isn't even funny.
Boy's about to get cooked, figuratively and literally. See, that's Borderlands-like humor right there. All right, I did a Borderlands joke there. And then, like, you immediately gotta explain it. It's funny because, like, I just used a fire weapon on him, and he died because he was ice, and so, and cooked. By cooked, generally people mean that, like, he got fucked over and he got fucked up. And since I used a fire weapon on him, both figuratively and literally, he got cooked. See, that's the type of humor that's in this game. Okay, it's just, oh god. It's just like, okay, like, bro, like, I get it. We don't need to explain, like, every stage of the joke. Like, first, it wasn't funny. 2, cringe. 3, stop. What's even happening here?
We eventually meet Ava, who it seems the entire Borderlands community blames for the writing being garbo, but honestly, I don't think she's really that bad, and the writing has way worse problems than her. After getting the vault key from Athenas, you're sent to Skywell 27 to destroy Katagawa's laser, who's head of mergers and acquisitions at Malawan. Throughout this section, it seems like they totally just butchered Reese's character. In Tales, Reese is an awkward guy with ambition who's highly competent, cares about the people around him, and tries to do the right thing when he can. In Borderlands 3, he's just a bumbling buffoon who manages to hack things sometimes, but would be useless without the Vault Hunters. There were so many funny interactions I would have liked to see Tails Reese have with the main cast, but we got Borderlands 3 Reese instead. This is also one of the downsides to not rehiring actors to play their characters from previous games. They have a better understanding of that character than sometimes even the writers, and can push back on some decisions where the character would do something that doesn't fit with who they are. I don't really see Tails Reese having deep emotional connections to bagel shops, water parks, and frozen yogurt stands, and missing the bigger picture about the situation. Sure, Tails Reese might have been annoyed about the situation, but would be much more concerned about the well-being of the shop owners' livelihoods and the people who Maliwan is hurting. One part of this section that serves as an example of how many missed opportunities with the writing there are is the Reese Ball. It also shows my issues with the joke structure in this game as well. Here, Reese finds a sex robot ball and uses it to hack doors for you. It ends with a section where he's playing smooth music while you're fighting off Maliwan soldiers. Now, this could be a funny situational comedy bit, but the execution here is just bad. All that the comedy is in this section is that Reese picks the sex bot and decides to play silly music during a shootout. The problem is that instead of gradually building towards this outcome and having a funny moment, it just feels like a lot of random XD humor due to not having any setup or build-up. Let's take this scene from Tucker and Dale vs. Evil as an example of setup and build-up. So the main crux of the comedy of this movie is being a parody of the killer targeting teens on vacation horror movie genre. You have a group of college kids taking a trip out to the country, and these two guys who have a cabin in the area are misunderstood by the group as being unhinged killers when in reality, they're just weird regular dudes. In this scene, you have Tucker chainsawing a log as you hear buzzing in the background while the college kids send someone over to sneak by. This is the setup. You have the chainsaw, the bees, and the two characters in proximity to one another. The scene continues with Tucker cutting into the nest and having a swarm of bees chase after him. He screams "Run for your lives" to the kids sent by the group while waving his chainsaw in the air. The comedy comes from the opposing characters' motivations, the misunderstandings, the interactions with the environment, and the payoff with all of those pieces coming together for this one scene. Borderlands 3 does not do this. It would have been at least a joke if the entire mission you were searching for the right death sphere and finally found something suitable in, let's say, Katagawa's degenerate sex dungeon, using it as your last resort after finding out some things you wish you didn't know about him. It could be glitchy and have various malfunctions throughout the mission, which Reese uses to his advantage in certain sections to help you out. Then it finally ends like it did in the game with the music, but it being a malfunction of the robot rather than a deliberate weird decision for Reese to make. It wouldn't be anything legendary, but at least it would be a joke. It would tell you more about Katagawa's character and shows Reese's ability to adapt to situations, and that he's CEO of a company for a reason. This isn't necessarily even a funny joke, but this is at least the basic structure of a joke. And the writers of a comedy game don't understand this. The section ends with a boss fight and Reese destroying Katagawa's pleasure yacht with the laser and decommissioning the weapon while you grab the vault key fragment. Reese then tells you he has the last fragment of the vault key with him at Atlas headquarters. When you reach Atlas headquarters, Maliwan attacks you while Reese hides from Zero trying to kill him. After reaching Reese, you find out it was actually Katagawa dressed up like Zero. One boss fight later, you defeat Katagawa and get the vault key. When you return to the ship, Maya volunteers to help you open the vault and tells Ava to stay on Sanctuary despite her protests. You drive to Apollyon Station and take the tunnel down to the vault, where you fight the Rampager. Ava shows up, you loot the vault, and the Calypsos do their signature strat of showing up to confront you directly because nobody actually planned for them to appear or kept an eye on Ava. It's already established at this point that she constantly disobeys Maya. Why not? Watch her. Of course, Maya dies during this scene because the writers are incapable of moving the plot forward without somebody being a moron, incompetent, or both. One cool part about this scene, though, was that it showed Troy being more of a mysterious and intimidating villain than you thought he was before. I had a genuine feeling of the guy being dangerous after this scene, even though they left the book and didn't even think to look inside the vault to kill you either. See what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying? The group then gets together in a semicircle to say goodbye to Maya. Ava gets mad and blames Maya's death on Lilith, and nobody ever gives a shit or cares about Maya dying after that. Bro, what?
Oh, we're so sorry to hear about your
siren.
Passed away. She gets 5 big booms. Boom! 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 Boom!
Let's compare that to an actual, well-written death in the series. Throughout the story in Borderlands 2, you're constantly on the defensive, either defending yourself from Hyperion attacks, going under the radar to help your allies, or gathering strength and resources in minor skirmishes. It makes you feel like you're in a war that you're losing. You eventually muster up the allies and resources to have your first significant confrontation with Hyperion. You make it past an impenetrable death wall, an invincible bunker, and a door which only opens for Handsome Jack, and find out that the siren helping you throughout the game was actually Jack's daughter, who he was exploiting to further his own power. Even though Roland told Lilith to stay back, Lilith still helps you during the fight and is vital to the mission's success. After killing Angel, Roland lets his guard down and Jack shoots him in the back and kidnaps Lilith. When you arrive back at Sanctuary, you see Roland's impact on everyone in the city and the hole left behind now that he's gone. The build up to this made the mission feel treacherous, with the missions you had to go on beforehand and the elite new soldiers you fight along the way. The fights feel epic with the army of buzzards behind you. It developed Lilith as a leader, showing that she did have better judgment of the situation than Roland, made you hate Handsome Jack more after seeing him kill the leader of the Crimson Raiders and witness what he would do to even his own daughter for power. And finally, it showed you that victory comes at a cost. Every single part of this mission built up the story, world, and characters. It didn't tear them down. Now let's take a look at Maya's death. Sure, you kind of build towards the moment by getting the vault key fragments, but all there is in the vault is just the coordinates of another vault, and you obtain nothing of value to the story other than a plot device to direct the characters towards Eden 6. Tyreen absorbs the vault monster, and it makes literally no difference to the story that she does it. Maya dies because all of the elite soldiers on a professionally operated spacecraft are unable to keep track of a fucking teenager. But don't worry, it's alright because the villains are lobotomites that are unable to take out anything that could pose a threat to them in the future. Also, there can be a 45-second funeral scene with an unfunny joke that makes you hate everyone involved in the dialogue, the game's development, and you being born on planet Earth to witness this dogshit story. The worst part is, I feel like I'm being mocked. Look at this deleted scene. It's not just good writing for a character death, but great writing for a character death by the same writers. I just don't understand. Why not include this scene in the game? Why did you leave it out? If you haven't seen this, this is an animatic that was left out of the final game because reasons, and they decided to go with the abomination that was included in the final game.
It's my fault. I got her killed.
It's gonna feel like that for a while, but it's not true. We both know Maya. She was always willing to risk her life for something that mattered.
Then why did she waste it on me?
Maya saw something in you. She believed in what you're going to become. She wanted to light the way for you when she was gone.
She used to tell me all about what you did on Pandora. About the Firehawk. She said you always ran toward the fire. You sounded like everything I ever wanted to be. Someone strong. A leader with a whole army at my back. Invincible.
None of us are, Ava.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, sounds like Maya left out a lot. I made my share of screw-ups. Running toward the fire all the time gets you burned.
But you never got anyone killed.
I did. Someone I cared about.
Oh.
This scene is perfect. You have Ava's outburst, characters reacting in their own way to the situation that reflects their personalities, a special area the characters go to for Maya's send-off, and Lilith and Ava reconciling in a way that builds up both of their characters by having them relate to each other through their guilt of feeling that they got someone killed, rather than tearing them down as characters. I don't understand. The devs will make me sit there while the objective is pending and characters are yapping about shit I don't care about. Why not include one more cutscene? Is this a good time to mention this? You know what? Yeah, it's a great time to mention this. Oh my god. This game makes me wait while characters are talking all the time. I like to deem this the game design concept of kidyapping. See, isn't it funny how I combine the word kidnapping with yapping? Don't you feel your intelligence insulted because the joke is that I explain the joke? Yup, that's Borderlands humor for you. Now, you might think that the point of the Echo broadcasting the voice of a quest giver was to make it so that you could play the game while consuming the story, but you'd be wrong and stupid. It's actually so you can listen to a character spew exposition that the writers were too lazy to write in a creative way from a distance, so you can come back when you're 30 miles away after running off to where you think the following waypoint will be. But instead, the next objective is actually just to talk to the same person again because there's a second talk to or give item objective for the same character after they finish speaking the first time, you stupid fucking bastard. As the Egyptians built the pyramids and the Romans built the Colosseum, so too did Gearbox build optimized gameplay cuckoldry. Why actually play the game while listening to the creatively bankrupt script when you can solely just tune into this abortion of a fucking plot? It's not like you have better things to do with your life. You like epic memes and fart jokes, Raffle Lamau XD. Why don't you consume more, you fucking idiot? I sure would like to see the story that dives into the cult dynamics and how leaders are able to rise up, seize power, and have ultra-loyal underlings who will do anything for them because the leader has a high level of social insight and can identify the areas and insecurities of their followers that they can fill through ultimate cult loyalty. That sure would be a cool villain that we didn't get, and instead had the writers go, haha, hold on, wouldn't it be funny if we had a siren streamer? Wow, so epic and hilarious, 420 bong hits, Michael Bay's Skibbity Toilet. How did they get millions of cult followers? LOL, they play video games. Oh my god, I still have half the video game and the DLC left. You travel to Eden 6, and Wainwright Jacobs asks for help dealing with the cringe of the vault. You meet the rest of the squad and rescue Hammerlock so he can say the most offensive line in the entire game.
Aurelia
Whoever it
one
is.
of the wealthiest creatures in the galaxy, but do not be fooled by the fine furs and priceless jewels she wears. She has the heart of a bandit.
Okay, so I just want to jump down here.
She believes in nothing but herself. If she had the charisma of Tyreen or the cunning of Troy, she would have started her own cult long ago.
First off, the number one rule of writing is to show, not tell. Please stop telling me what the characters' personalities are like. If the writing is good and you have confidence in it, I shouldn't need NPCs telling me about who a character is. Tyreen is not charismatic. I don't know why anyone would actually want to listen to her, much less be a mindless cultist of her. I would rather give my eternal loyalty to Shoe Nice.
Basically, this is the 2 liquid ass bottles in under a minute.
Troy is not cunning. In the very next scene, he has the chance to kill you right then and there and has a monologue long enough for Wainwright to just shoot him. It never feels like these villains have a grand vision, any real plan, clear motivations, or anything of redeeming value going for them. They're characters that only have the motivation of, I want to do whatever I want and have unlimited power. Wow, what a unique and captivating villain with so much depth. They even picked the perfect overused faction to go along with it. That's right. If you're too lazy to think of why anyone would have a following behind them, just make it a cult. That way, you don't have to actually think about how characters would act rationally in situations, have them have a sense of self-preservation, or have any of their actions make sense or line up with any understanding or expectation of human behavior in general. I understand this is a Borderlands game. I understand that every single video game doesn't need an Oscar-winning script, okay? But I think it's reasonable to at least expect the bare minimum level of thought and care into the world and characters. This feels like we got the dollar store ChatGPT version of Borderlands 2's script. It feels like they just looked at Borderlands 2 and said, okay, so this game had a smug villain, the death of a beloved character, and humor. How about we just do all of that without thinking of how any of it fit together in the previous game? I don't want to make it sound like you can't write a cult in interesting ways, because you can. Cults are very much real things that exist, and allow evil people to take advantage of the weaknesses of the human mind. That is what a cult is, which is why it's so frustrating to me that very few games get it right. This kind of behavior is the essence of evil. manipulation and exploitation of the people who are most vulnerable and just want somewhere to belong and escape the suffering of their lives. But actually, LOL, Minecraft Let's Plays! Eden 6 is basically just the anime filler arc section of the game, leading to the most important part of the story. No, not the vault. The Ice-T cameo, who turns out to be the MacGuffin that allows you to find the vault after a section where you navigate a bad robot breakup. Kill me! You get some vault key fragments, kill Aurelia in a pretty sick boss fight, and get an actually good Borderlands joke when Hammerlock talks about Wainwright being cranky when he gets shot. The joke works because it reveals more about his character as someone that isn't afraid to get in the line of fire, shows that behind the scenes, there are a lot of shenanigans that the two get up to, and builds the world as an unforgiving place that even CEOs are getting caught up in these situations.
Like, that's dirty, bro. They put two really good abilities right next to each other. I have to choose between a shit ton of damage or lifesteal. And you know your boy's gonna change
You open the vault and start the most painful boss fight in the game. Master's attack pattern, raise your firstborn son to adulthood, finally get through the boss's health bar, and Tannis deploys a device that prevents Tyreen from absorbing the monster's power. Tannis gets kidnapped by Troy, and you have to go to Carnivora to rescue her from her public execution by celebrity cameo number 2, Pain and Terror, played by Penn and Teller, that you know Magic's still learning multiplication tables when he was learning how to traumatize Alien fan squirt porn enjoyer Randy Pitchford told the team to put in the game. You fight your way to the base, have probably the coolest boss fight in the game, and find out Tannis inherited Angel's siren powers. In 2011, Macklemore released a song called Wings. The song tells a story of the rapper always getting the latest pair of shoes, living his childhood with the lie told to him that having this brand of Nikes or Air Maxes would make him just like the basketball pros. Eventually, he knew someone who was killed and robbed for them, and realized that as he grew up, he was just fed a false identity and promises for money, encapsulated by the last line of the song, that they were just another pair of shoes. This didn't stop the NBA from using this song to promote their All-Star game in 2013, conveniently with the criticisms of American consumerism cut out, of course. Now, this isn't going to be a rant talking about how evil capitalism is. The world is more complicated than that. This is only to say that capitalism, or at the very least, American-style capitalism, is very efficient at selling identities to people at a premium, and taking criticisms of itself and warping them into another product that can be sold. Just search Che Guevara on Amazon, and you'll know exactly what I mean. So what does this have to do with Borderlands? When Borderlands was created, it set out to criticize corporate power, short-sighted greed, shallow marketing, blatant dishonesty and hollow promises, and identities and lives that were dedicated to megacorps that don't care about you. Here we are though, with a game made by a studio with a CEO that allegedly steals bonuses from staff when Gearbox pays rates that are below the industry average when employee bonuses at the company are what make up for that. Fluff is added to the game solely for celebrity cameos, Randy Pitchford blatantly lies about microtransactions not being in the game and refuses to take responsibility for not saying loot box instead. Yeah, why would we fuck him on this? Gearbox refuses to work with unions, lies about it like they think you're stupid, and the game is written with Sonic fanfiction tier storytelling that doesn't bother to build the universe or characters, and in fact, just makes everything in the Borderlands lore worse. I don't think I've seen a bigger perversion of what a series set out to do. Celebrity cameos or roles are not a bad thing in video games on their own. I get it. Games need to be marketed, and you need to add some things to make people pay attention. That's just reality. As an example of a celebrity cameo done well, casting Keanu Reeves for Johnny Silverhand in Cyberpunk 2077 was great. He contributed to the cyberpunk genre massively by starring in The Matrix and Johnny Mnemonic. Johnny Silverhand is shown to be this larger-than-life legend, and having Keanu Reeves play him makes you in the real world see him the same way since you know him as a celebrity actor. This is how casting a celebrity can actually enhance the art because you recognize them as such. My problem lies in designing a game around this casting without any thought behind it. The Balak section and the Penn and Teller arc are solely there to add padding to the runtime and do nothing to enhance the gameplay or story experience besides a cool boss fight. And don't get me started on Randy Pitchford. Randy Pitchford represents everything I hate about social media while we're on the topic of shallow marketing. As everyone's lives have become increasingly present to the outside world, that too has now included those of insecure CEOs. There's this romantic idea of being a CEO pushed out to the world, that you're the boss, everything you say goes, and you're super epic, bro. This has led to the rise of the man-child social media CEO. You do what you want, say what you want, ignore valid criticism as just haters who are jelly of your success, and caring about anything or other people is turbo beta and bot behavior, homie. These are not real leaders. Randy Pitchford is constantly caught saying and doing stupid shit, not taking responsibility for his actions, mistreating his employees, and just being a sleaze in general. Only a CEO can take sensitive documents and lose them in medieval times, of course included with his videos of squirting cam girls, and still have a job at the end of the day with probably the worst excuse I've seen someone ever make. I need to read this to you. He confirmed that he copied a specific video to his memory stick to, as he describes it, work out the method of how a cam girl host faked the act of female ejaculation. I realized this is not a sex worker, Pitchford said on the show. This is a fucking magician. Do this at your job. I dare you. He never has to worry about job security, he never has to worry about his words hurting the company, and he never has to feel the consequences of his actions. That would be the job of the employees under him who get laid off when the company isn't doing well. This lack of care and empathy towards other people was most evident when he was asked if Borderlands 4 would be $80, to which he then said that real fans would find a way to pay for it if it were. That's right, you're paycheck to paycheck, not a real fan. Got laid off? Not a real fan. And this is coming from the guy who made the video defending games going up in price. It's not just what he said, it's the general lack of caring to think about other people's situations and how they would interpret what you're saying that gets to me. How pathetic is it that there are employees under him that have to think, damn, what kind of stupid childish shit is my CEO going to tweet out today that could possibly hurt the company enough to cost me my job?
Oh, this is cool. This is the first dollar that Gearbox made when we got our first check for our first thing. I pulled $1 out and I put it in that frame. It reminds me, of course, that it's a business. It's like we love creating entertainment, but if we don't at least make as much money as we spend, then we don't get to keep going. And I also feel a deep responsibility to all the people here whose livelihoods I'm responsible for. So we have to remember that.
Is this really what we want to strive for as people? How about instead, we learn to grow the fuck up, take some criticism, hop off Twitter, and run your fucking company if you're too inept to give a public statement without saying some dumb shit? Back to the story, you try to take the fight to the Calypsos, but some turrets stop you. You find Tannis' secret lab and get an Iridium amplifier, allowing Tannis to take down the turrets. Now it's time for the final assault as you fight to the Great Vault. Having the Atlas soldiers fighting alongside you is a nice touch, making your actions feel a bit more impactful. You take down Troy, and Ava gets Maya's powers back from him. Wait, why can't Lilith touch Tyreen and regain her powers? Oh, that's right, because the Crimson Raiders can't make sure their enemy is dead either. Tyreen gets up, thinks she kills the three, and once again doesn't make sure that her most significant threat is actually dead, or that it would be a good idea to take the vault key. You're contacted by the first vault hunter, Typhon DeLeon, and find out Pandora is actually the Great Vault, and the destroyer from Borderlands 1 is still alive, with Tyreen wanting to absorb its power. The vault gives you an artifact that allows you to translate the Iridian language. You go to Necro DeFeo, which is legendary for some reason, even though you have never heard of it throughout the series up to this point. You meet Typhon DeLeon and need 4 vault keys to open the Great Vault. you're sent out to find the last key, don't think about how Malawan is here, and it was still in question whether Necrotafeo existed or not. You get the bridge gets destroyed, and you have to find another way around sequence once again, fight the other General Tron, and Typhon talks about how his wife died, and he had to raise his 2 kids alone. You discover his kids were Troy and Tyrene, but he was overprotective of them, and they ended up evil. I wish there was a bit more to flesh them out as villains, and by a bit more, I mean anything at all. After getting the vault key, you open the Great Vault while Tyrene yaps about wanting to be the biggest star in the universe because she has daddy issues and just leaves everyone alive after she kills Typhon de Leon in a scene that you totally care about. Oh no. Wow, I really wish they had spent the time for character development on a character death we actually cared about. I wonder when they could have done that. Tyrene absorbs the destroyer and you fight the game's final boss alongside the greatest ally you could ask for, Yellow Paint. After you beat her, you find out Elpis is about to tear Pandora apart, but Lilith gets her powers back, makes Ava in charge of Sanctuary despite being 15 and showing no leadership capabilities up to this point, and Judgment that got Maya killed, and crashes into the moon. This is the first time I've played a video game where my gameplay experience was actually downgraded by how bad the story was. We need to get rid of the idea that storytelling is not relevant to gameplay. It is. We're human. We connect with stories, and weight is added to every part of the game you play when you actually care about what's happening, and it's not just another section with more enemies. There are so many moments in the games we play that just wouldn't be the same if there weren't good writers behind them. Games aren't Pong anymore. We aren't limited by the technology we have at the time, and can make something that's so much more than just a board or sports game brought to a screen. This game is worse off in every single way for having a bad story. Moxxi's Heist of the Handsome Jackpot is the first DLC of Borderlands 3, where you help Moxxi take over Handsome Jack's casino, which was thrown into chaos after his death, with everyone being trapped there. I like stories like this. It's really cool to have a whole DLC that results from some side project that Handsome Jack was working on. It shows the extent of how far-reaching the consequences of Hyperion's power were, and that the effects are still present even after 7 years. Once you enter the casino, you see the place is run by someone named Pretty Boy. You arrive at the strip and hear a call for help, which turns out to be Timothy Lawrence, the Handsome Jack clone you played as in the pre-sequel. He helps you throughout the DLC while trying too hard to impress Moxxi. You meet Ember to recruit her as the heist explosives expert, find out from her that the casino is rigged to keep all inhabitants as debt slaves for life, recruit Freddy as the robotics expert, and get Ember's tools. Timothy also tells you that Pretty Boy is after him for his winning hand, which gives him special access to areas in the casino. You're sent to the mayor of Trashlantis to get a Handsome Jack outfit made to get in the tower. I don't understand why every single thing has to be made into a joke in this game, and I use that term lightly. Like, is that a joke? Haha, trash, is that really a joke? Anyway, you make a constructor to prevent Pretty Boy from using the trash compactor to destroy the town, and he joins you. The first step of the heist is to get the blueprints to the casino, the next is to get the Compound 24 to breach the tower, and the final step is to get the materials to make Handsome Jack's outfit. When the heist is about to go off, you're betrayed by Freddy, and he kidnaps Timothy. You make your way to the VIP tower, kill Freddy, and fight Pretty Boy operating the Handsome Jack mech. When you win the fight, the ship is heading towards the event horizon of a black hole and needs the winning hand to stop. But Timothy is trapped and tells you to leave, but Moxxi doesn't want to leave him behind after all the help he's given you. Timothy uses the laser cage to chop off his hand so you can stop the ship. The DLC ends with him asking Moxxi why she went out to dinner with him, and she tells him that she was just hungry, and that he didn't fool her for a second when he said that he was Handsome Jack. To which he celebrates since she went out to dinner because it was him and not Handsome Jack that she was going out with. Moxxi's Heist of the Handsome Jackpot was a good DLC. There was much more to dig into with the writing since Timothy Lawrence is a genuinely interesting character. He starts as a regular guy who becomes a body double of Handsome Jack for money. Over and over again, he's just an ordinary guy getting caught in extraordinary circumstances and has to adapt to that while figuring out who he is as a person. It doesn't help that he went from being a nobody to being a body double of the most famous man in the galaxy. Throughout his journey as a body double, he was either a pawn of Hyperion or a key to be used for Pretty Boy. During the heist, he's the key player in making it go off with his winning hand and looking like Handsome Jack for the scanner. When he chops off his hand using the cage to leave the casino, it symbolizes him ridding himself of the Handsome Jack identity and being free to be his own person. Validated by Moxxi telling him that she went on a date with him, knowing that he wasn't Handsome Jack. The gameplay was just more Borderlands, but I really wish the DLC was more about the heist prep rather than just getting the characters for the heist and the game blowing through the preparation steps right before the final steps of the heist. It was a fun DLC though. Guns, Love, and Tentacles is the second DLC of Borderlands 3, and has you heading to Zylorgos for the wedding of Hammerlock and Wainwright Jacobs. When you arrive on the planet, you hear the wedding planner in trouble, who turns out to be Gage from Borderlands 2, and moves at a non-snail's pace when you follow her to the cabin while she's yapping. Actual gameplay improvements, dude! Wainwright invites you to look at the venue with him as he talks about his anxieties about the wedding. He wonders if Hammerlock would be happier with somebody more adventurous than he was. You hear chanting and come across people being sacrificed in a ritual, which looks like a wedding ceremony. You kill the husband, but his ring attaches to Wainwright's finger. After bringing him back to the lodge, you find a detective to get more information on what you're dealing with, and discover that the couple researched an artifact called Ginthian's Heart before they were possessed. You track down more information about it, bringing you to the local hunter tribe that wants you to kill a Wendigo to burn the ice to the way forward. Hammerlock comments that Wainwright would be much better at handling the possession situation than he would. Gage has Hammerlock assist you since he isn't improving the situation at the lodge, and hunting is a strong suit. Hammerlock comments to you that he's sure he loves Wainwright, but felt something pulling him out of the lodge, and is unsure of himself. Once you hunt down the Wendigo, Hammerlock tells you that the thought of Wainwright allowed him to overcome his fear of the creature. You see how the two complete each other in their relationship in this quest, and how someone adventurous isn't what Hammerlock wants. After opening the door, you arrive at Vincent and Eleanor's research station and upgrade Gage's death trap with a piece of the heart, with a fake out death in the process that made you feel more than any other actual death in this game did. You use Death Trap's upgrade to get into the keep and fight Eleanor in the heart. Once you complete the fight, Wainwright and Hammerlock get married using the rings that have now lost their power. Looking back, Guns, Love, and Tentacles was a DLC that was better than I thought it was when I played through it. It was a cute parody of Lovecraftian horror, and even though it felt out of place in the Borderlands universe, it did a solid job of developing the main cast. You learn more about the adventurous side of Hammerlock, the thoughtful, bordering on overthinking and anxious side of Wainwright, and Gage's ability to lead, strategize, know her allies' strengths, and adapt through a crisis, almost like there was a better choice to lead the Crimson Raiders and intergalactic spaceship than someone that isn't even old enough to have a driver's license. Nah, bro, this shit sucks. Psycho Krieg and the fantastic Fustercluck is the last DLC of Borderlands 3 that's relevant to the story. It starts with Tannis teleporting you into the mind of Krieg to figure out the secret of what makes a psycho. You're teleported to a happy meadow where you fight off some enemies sent after you, before Sane Krieg saves you and tells you that what you're looking for is going to be behind a gate. He agrees to help you if you get him separated from the psycho side of himself. But you have to get the 3 parts of the statue to make it through the gate. The first area is the world from the perspective of Psycho Krieg, where you have to assault the meat castle. You find out that this was a mission against the Children of the Vault that they did with the Crimson Raiders, after not having fought with them in a while. But Sane Krieg doesn't know why this is important to his psycho side. You fight against an evil version of Mordecai and Brick Psycho Krieg imagined, who hate him from his perspective. You try to launch a catapult at the door to the meat castle, and launch the moon afterwards when that doesn't work. See, these are the sentences I like to say when I'm describing Borderlands. You learn Psycho Krieg finds it easier to assume everyone's an enemy and not to trust anyone. When you get in the keep, you hear evil Lilith belittling Krieg before you fight her at the top of the tower. Sane Krieg shows his psycho half how the end of the mission actually went down in a really heartwarming scene where the 3 of them invite Krieg to Moxxi's for some drinks and genuinely appreciate having him around. You add the psycho buzz axe you got from the meat castle onto the statue and see Maya, the only thing the 2 Kriegs see the same on, get kidnapped by a train. As you chase after her, the train tries to keep you from reaching Maya. You eventually go through a portal and hear Maya's first conversation about inviting Krieg to the group. As the level goes on, it becomes more and more chaotic, with the train constantly going around the map, making you feel the chaos of Krieg's grief over Maya's death. You see how much the mind of Krieg desperately wants to hold on to the memories of Maya before you fight the train in a boss battle. A flashback of Maya telling Krieg that there was more to life than just survival, and that he should find something to fight for after understanding what he was trying to say in his psycho way plays. They leave the symbolism of the train up to interpretation, but it acts as a symbol of Krieg's journey through life and how the trajectory of who we become as people can be influenced by just a few moments in our lives. He wandered Pandora as someone fighting for survival before Maya gave him purpose. As people come and go through our lives quickly, so too do trains go from stop to stop, with stories at each step of the journey, people coming aboard and exiting at each station. One train earlier or later, and Krieg never would have met Maya, completely changing what his life would have been otherwise. Intertwined with his journey for a higher purpose was someone who he owed that journey to, Maya. You might be thinking, yo, are these the same writers? You attach the gauntlet and find out the last part of the statue is where both sides of Krieg met each other. You arrive at a Hyperion lab, but Krieg isn't able to see you or be present at the memory where he was experimented on. You shut down the experiment and see a dead subject, to which Krieg comments that he was one of the lucky ones. When you get to the room where Krieg was being experimented on, he tells you that the gas that the lead researcher Benedict tested on him turned others into monsters, but made him feel weak and powerless. The feeling is echoed with the map changing around you, making you feel confused and unable to control the situation around you. When it was observed that Krieg was developing multiple personalities, Dr. Benedict ordered that Krieg be killed, with his psycho side coming out, allowing him to kill Benedict and escape. While his psycho side made it hard for him to connect with the outside world, it was also what allowed him to act on his will to live within it. In the end, Krieg is unable to retrieve his memories of who he was before the experiments, but you get the mask to put on the statue, which symbolizes the psycho mask he puts on to protect himself. As you near Valhalla, the idea so powerful in the psycho's mind that it makes them the way they are, Krieg feels the origin of his rage before you fight the Psycho Reaver. After the final fight, you loot the Horde, and Krieg refuses Tannis' offer to separate him from his psycho half and wipe his memories after he realizes the rage you fought in the final battle was reaching out to consume his sane self. But the barriers his psycho half put up were to protect what was left of his humanity. Krieg realizes he was spending too long reaching for a past he lost that he forgot how to appreciate the life he had, and sees the opportunity in front of him to build from that point forward. If he hadn't had the moments of suffering that came along with the moments of peace and happiness, he just wouldn't have been, well, Krieg. The quality of the writing in this DLC was not just a step up from the writing in previous DLCs, but it was genuinely excellent. It does a deep dive into who Krieg is as a character and how he handles grief, struggle, and purpose. There was fantastic symbolism, character development, and creative environments. This DLC is a masterclass in what it means to blend story into gameplay. Not only is this the best written DLC in Borderlands 3, this is the best writing in the series so far. Psycho Krieg and the fantastic Fustercluck serves as a good metaphor for the Borderlands series. Ever since the release of Borderlands 2, the series has struggled to find its identity. In the first game, Borderlands was meant to push what RPGs could be, creating the looter-shooter genre in a dark, melancholic comedy thought experiment, criticizing the effect of corporate greed when it's now not just some other country thousands of miles away you don't care about, but some other planet thousands of light years away you don't care about, suffering the effects of corporate colonization without oversight. Borderlands 2 continued this with a charismatic figure rising to power with no government, opposition, or morals to keep him in check, with a more comedic twist on the series, better types of loot, new mechanics and skills, and diverse environments. After this point though, the series hasn't been able to find its footing. Pre-sequel was a rushed mess that didn't expand the lore in any interesting ways, had clunky mechanics, and saw the comedic approach of Borderlands 2 as a go-ahead to force jokes into every situation, even when it wasn't necessary. However, at the end of the day, the story didn't hurt the gameplay too much. Borderlands 3, however, solidified how Gearbox lost sight of why Borderlands became so popular in the first place. While almost everything from a gameplay perspective was a massive step up, the lack of care towards the plot, not putting any thought into establishing lore or characters, and actively having the storytelling make the world and characters worse with the lazy writing at every turn, resulted in a game that felt like a gameplay sequel, but not a story sequel. All Borderlands was now was just a wacky random XD comedy game with crazy loot, evil corporations, and smug and shallow villains. It didn't help any that Marvel movies were at their peak at the time, and everyone, for some reason, thought it was complete cinema to have serious moments ruined by stupid jokes that are entirely out of place in the scene. In an IGN interview with Randy Pitchford in 2012, he was asked to describe Borderlands to somebody unfamiliar with the series and said this.
Borderlands is a game where a crazy psycho midget will run at you and you could punch his leg off.
Perfect. Pre-order now, Mom.
And take his stuff.
Yeah.
And take his stuff, and then use it to punch the next.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's wild. It's like, oh, and the midget's on fire.
Okay.
Why did it work? For me, shooters are fun. It's fun. Just there's this we have this kind of reptilian brain. Some people call it the reptilian brain, which kind of handles our primal motivations, where we think oh, I need to eat that, or that's going to kill me, avoid that, okay. Or have sex with that, or whatever.
That's my favorite.
No,
one.
it's really the most primal kind of instincts, right? And we have this we've evolved into this kind of having these intellectual capacities, that have higher motivations. There's Maslow's hierarchy of motivations and stuff. The shooter always kind of spoke to that primal kind of thing. It just feels good to kind of move and aim and to jump and just shoot, and you get this feedback and it's just, and you can't even explain it, but just in the moment to moment play, it's just fun. There's just something that's rewarding and feeling good about a shooter that's done really well. But the thing about shooters is they're just kind of you just throw different stuff at us, and the character at the end of pretty much every shooter you've ever played is identical to the character at the beginning in terms of what he can do, how high he can jump, for example, or what you find some new guns along the way, but it's not like they get better. It's maybe you get a new little gadget that does something, but for the most part the characters stay the same. And then meanwhile there's this whole other genre, the role-playing game genre, where there's nothing moment to moment about it. Back in the early days of Hack, it was turn-based, and all text characters were representing the things. The predecessor to Diablo was called Hack, right? And the fun had nothing to do with that visceral kind of, the reptilian brain motives. The fun of these games is about making decisions, having choices about
changing your
this character or that character. And then once you made a choice, how do I configure that character? And then what gear do I pick? Oh, here's a tool that this one does more damage, but that one's more accurate and is faster. That's an interesting choice.
What do I do?
Right? And then making that choice and then feeling the effects of that choice, and it's really gratifying, and then over time growing and becoming more and more powerful, more and more capable, so that at the end you're just you're godlike in power compared to where you were at the beginning. And that's a whole different set of motivations and engagement that's kind of long range. And what occurred to us was that the fun that happens from those games is actually not mutually exclusive to the fun that happens in this kind of visceral moment-to-moment shooter. Mm-hmm. And we realized, holy crap, that is chocolate, and that's freaking peanut butter. And if we just put these things together, we can have, this could be amazing, So we did, and holy crap, peanut butter cups taste pretty good.
Yeah.
It was clear he understood Borderlands. How can we do wild, badass shit and push the limits of what makes an RPG shooter while still having everything make sense? It was controlled chaos, not a trash can approach where everything goes. It felt like everything in Borderlands 2 was included for a reason, as opposed to Borderlands 3, where there was so much unnecessary fluff that you could remove entire sections and not lose anything from the story. Honestly, it might even be improved by doing that. Borderlands became a product and not a project, and that is the main problem the series suffers to this day. I appreciate that the devs are realizing that maybe they went too far with injecting humor into every moment of the game, and they seem to be creating an actual grounded story with hopefully the antagonist who isn't smug villain number 28 taunting you the entire story in the next game. Hopefully they don't go too far in the other direction with Borderlands 4. We're already getting some hints of it with the toned down art style and character designs. But you'd never know until the game actually comes out and you shell out your $80 plus season pass plus pre-order plus special edition to actually become a real fan. In the meantime though, it looks like we can watch... Oh no.